truth.
They faked going to the moon. This is not a conspiracy theory website. The footage doesn't have sound, so it's okay that you guys don't hear it. This is supposed to be like one of the first footages of space or of stars in space. And this thing is floating up. Everybody's watching. And there's the glory. Look at the stars. Do you see that star? Do you know why that is impossible? Because the moon isn't a crescent, it's a whole moon. It's just like shadowed. You shouldn't be able to see a star in the shadow of the moon or the stars in front of the moon. This is ridiculous. Like, people actually believe that this is real. But what's awesome is how many people are waking up. You look at the comments here and people are like, ah, yes, a star shining through the moon, LOL. Listen to this about stars.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
We just saw stars from a balloon, but they were in space. They were on the moon, and they're like, I don't remember seeing stars ever.
I don't remember seeing any.
He's like, dude, come on, man. Stop. It's enough. Do you see that? He gives him a look, and then he's like, like shrinking back in his seat.
Never seeing any.
It's like, come on, man. So you can see stars from a balloon, but you can't see stars when you're on the moon. There was a time when the ISS was doing a supposedly live feed with a school, and somebody said, are you able to see stars in the ISS? And the guy was like,
oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons. You can see the zodiacal light.
Whoa.
We can see all of the Milky Way, all in a single orbit.
If I went to the moon, I would not look so depressed. People win the football game, and they're screaming in the locker room. How NASA makes those incredible high-res images of Earth. They're saying that they get the images from a low-orbit satellite that takes ribbons of images, and they have to fill those gaps in. If they have satellites, why don't they just go back and take a whole picture of Earth? Instead, it's literally like an airplane flying over different parts of the world, taking ribbons of images that have to be stitched together on this globe.
That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these.
They have to put these pieces together, which means there's empty spaces between the ribbons that have to be photoshopped in.
Because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
All these layers are put together to make that picture of the blue marble world that you all see on your iPhones. He admits it is photoshopped. We had to fill in the gaps because we don't have technology to go back far enough and take a picture of Earth. And yet people look at this on their phone and they will show you that and say, look, the Earth is a globe. Here's the proof. We got a picture of it. This is the footage that Bart got given of them faking halfway to the moon. Look at the pattern. That's cloud coverage. There's no way in all the Earth's history that cloud formation could be the same. If the Earth is turning, clouds are a vapor that are just being formed all the time. But yet, when you zoom in on this picture of an astronaut on the moon and look at the image of Earth, it's the same. You see that, right? You see this? It's the same cloud formation. Everything about this is the same, which is why when you put it inside of Photoshop and start tweaking with the adjustment layers, you actually see that it's a square. If you take these original images and you put them in Photoshop, we now have the technology, the people have the technology to put these things in a program and find out that they're faked. There's no way that a square gets put around the Earth if you're taking a photograph of Earth from the moon. Me as a graphic designer, I know all about this. I use Photoshop constantly. If you have the magic wand tool and you make sure that the tolerance level is all the way down, it's only going to select that exact color. If it's any different shade, it's going to show you and reveal it. This is another proof that we never went to the moon, that these pictures are fake. This is straight off of NASA's website. It says, from 1 million miles away, NASA's camera shows moon crossing face of Earth. Now look at this. This is the dark side of the moon that we're seeing. This is from, I guess, a satellite that's higher than the moon, and it actually caught footage of the moon going across the Earth. What I want you to notice is the clouds. They are not moving 1 inch. The clouds do not move at all in this video of the rotation of the Earth. You know how fast clouds move? The website says that these images were taken between 3:50 p.m. and 8:45 p.m. So 5 hours of footage and not a single cloud has moved. Also, notice the sun is behind the camera, which is illuminating the moon, and yet the moon is not casting a shadow on Earth at all. This should be a solar eclipse that's casting the moon's shadow on Earth, but there's no shadow.
When the moon comes between Earth and the sun, it casts a shadow on Earth.
Come on, man. This is straight from NASA. Be honest with yourself. This is not real. I'm looking at different things that make me know this isn't real. There's some weird lighting on the edge of Earth here. This is a perfect circle. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that Earth is pear-shaped.
So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. It's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped, 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 pear-shaped.
Come on, man. This is not adding up. There's no consistency with space, the globe, NASA, these physicists. This is not a pear-shaped Earth. This is an exact, perfectly round, Photoshop circular Earth, and the clouds don't change formation at all. We're going to listen to Don Pettis say that he'd go to the moon in a nanosecond, except they destroyed that technology.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
It's a painful process. Dude, we have computers in our pocket. We're all walking around with computers in our pocket that can stream video to thousands of people. And back then, in 1969, there may have been an Atari. The computer level back then compared to now. And you're saying that if you just look at the moon lander, that thing looks like it was made by kindergartners. Literally, it looked like a science project put together with shower curtain rods and gold foil and a shed. There's a storage shed on top. And it seemed like there was 3 different versions of how they went to space. They got in a rocket. That thing flies up. It turns into the lunar module, the thing with legs and feet that don't have any dust on them when they land. And then somehow when they got in there, that thing was able to take off and go back to Earth and land as some kind of capsule from a parachute. Dude, there's nothing about this that I'm buying. And here's these guys saying that they can't go higher than lower Earth orbit.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
So he just said we can only go to lower Earth orbit, but maybe one day we could go to places like the moon and Mars. You mean like we did in 1969? This is crazy. And then here's where he's saying we need to build shielding on Orion, which is this other space capsule thing. There's not enough shielding to get through the Van Allen radiation belts, but they would have had to have gone through the Van Allen radiation belts to go to the moon in 1969. And now we're talking about we need to build shielding that can get humans and computers, onboard computers, through that radiation. Check this out.
My name is Kelly Smith, and I work on navigation and guidance for Orion. Orion is NASA's next-generation spacecraft. Built with versatility in mind, it can take astronauts deeper into space than we've ever gone before, to an asteroid or even onto Mars. For these missions, Orion has to be one tough spacecraft, withstanding high speeds, searing temperatures, and extreme radiation. Before we can send astronauts into space on Orion, we have to test all of its systems. And there's only one way to know if we got it right: fly it in space. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. For this flight, it's time to head home.
He's literally telling you we can't go through the Van Allen radiation belts. Whether you believe in Van Allen radiation belts or not, I don't anymore. I used to when I first heard about this stuff, but now I believe that there's a firmament. Either way, you can't go to space. And so I think the Van Allen radiation belts is kind of the deception to explain why we can't go to space or why we can't go to the moon. But he's literally saying, like, this was years after we went to the moon. And he's saying, we are still working on shielding to be able to get through those radiation belts. Not just for humans, but for even onboard computers. So answer me this. How do we have a little remote control car on Mars right now? That's an onboard computer. And how are we controlling it from Earth? I can't even get a signal on my phone when I go into the mountains or on an airplane. But we can control a remote control car from Earth? Come on, guys. We've been duped. Here's a question asked to one of the astronauts by Bart Sabrell, the guy we just had on. Listen to how their stories never line up.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did.
Every space mission in history with humans on board, from both the United States and Soviet Union, from the first in 1961 to the present, has been well below this deadly radiation field. Mercury, Gemini, Soyuz, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, all maintained altitudes well below 1,000 miles. All except Apollo.
I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt, and if we did, it wasn't a problem.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
Then we went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
We didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside.
You went to the moon and you had to go through months of training and going through all these different things, and you don't even know where the Van Allen radiation belts are. Like, you weren't primed for that and prepped, like, hey, now when you get this far up, you might feel a little uncomfortable because there's severe bands of radiation that you're going to be going through. And he's like, no, we must have went right through it. I didn't even know about it. 2 astronauts were asked, is the engine, is it loud? This is what they said. 2 conflicting stories.
Is the engine loud as you're descending?
Well, the engine is very loud. It's very difficult to tell the difference between feeling sound and hearing sound, but yes, it's loud.
When you were in it, you couldn't hear it in the vacuum of space.
If you ask 2 people, hey, you both were at that party last night, was the music loud? And one person was like, oh yeah, it was very loud. And the other person was like, I don't know, I couldn't hear it. You would be like, what's going on? Were you guys really both at that party or not? I mean, this is damning evidence. These are liars. These people are lying. Now, when Buzz Aldrin was asked, why haven't we been to the moon in such a long time? He has a very interesting answer. Check this out.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So,
okay, that's just the craziest answer ever. There's no, look, people can say context, whatever. Go look it up. It's like a 17-minute long video. This girl's dad, I'm sure, asked her to ask him these questions. And that's why he gives like a nervous laugh when he goes, oh, that's not an 8-year-old question. The dad's like, but then he's saying, that's my question. Go watch it. There's no context that will make what he said make sense. If he literally went to the moon, no context can explain what he just said.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
Because we didn't. Because we didn't. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So
it would be nice to know why it didn't happen. I want to know. Now check this out. This is crazy. So George Bush is being pushed through the Space Center, and there's footage, live, quote unquote, live footage from the ISS going on in the background. What do you see that's interesting in the background? I see a blue screen with a grid on it. That same guy is right here showing you how you can play with a bubble of water in space. Now, why is the background blue with a grid on it and he's got a green ball? This is special effects happening right there. You got caught right there on television while they're pushing George Bush. This blue grid is how they do live compositing, live keying, because the camera and the software can pick up on that grid, and even if the camera moves, the background moves with it so that you look like you're in the environment. And this is live keying. This is exactly what they're doing. The ISS there's been so many things that have shown that the ISS is faking it, whether it's harness wires or green screen glitches or bubbles in space or hair-sprayed hair instead of it flowing around. And we're going to look at some of that stuff. I'm going to show you these clips that I put together, and I want you to just be honest with yourself while you're watching these clips. You see this guy doing a backflip, and people are grabbing wires behind him, grabbing his wire on his leg. This guy, he actually falls halfway through his flip. This guy, he tries to bend down and can only go so far. This guy can't even do a backflip in 0G. And this lady grabs a wire, she stands up. Now I'm going to show you all these, compare them side by side. Look, this guy's definitely struggling with a harness wire on the left. This guy on the right's grabbing a cord that you can see attached to his pants. And the guy in the background is swatting at a wire he's trying to grab. Here, the guy on the left falls halfway through his flip. And on the right, this guy is lunging to do a backflip. And if this was 0G, he would just continue to go on. But he doesn't. Here on the left, we see this lady grab a wire as she stands up. Or she's just grabbing nothing, maybe. I don't know. On the right, this guy bends down but is stopped by resistance, and you see his shirt lift up in the back. So, I mean, you just have to be honest with yourself. Is this 0G? Is this really the ISS going on? These are scenes from the movie called Life. It's about the ISS, and you can see how they're floating around with harnesses. I think this is how they're doing it. This lady's hair is just stiff as a board, standing straight up, and that's her proof that they're on the ISS. This lady's hair is bouncing right back in place as she bends down. I've reversed it back and forth so you can see how she moves her head forward, and instead of her hair freely flowing forward, bounces back in place. Same with this Medusa chick here. She's definitely in a 0G plane because she's floating around, but her hair is hairsprayed stiff. Now, if you were just going to keep your hair out of your way, I would pull it back in a ponytail, but she's got it stiff. Now, this is what your hair would do in 0G. Freely move, not stiff as a board like we see on the right here. This is hairspray. This looks exactly like what we see on the ISS. Now, sometimes we do see hair moving freely on the ISS when it's an edited shot, just little clips. But if there's any long periods of shots or live, they definitely do the hairspray so you can't tell when the plane levels out. But look at this hair freely flowing on the ISS. So both of these are from the ISS, but their hair is doing completely different things. So you come up with your own conclusion here. But this is how I expect people to fly around on the ISS, just corkscrewing and going all crazy, but they always just do this backflip or this front flip, this stiff flip, and then gravity hits. Boom. Whoop. There's that gravity. There's no consistency. I don't know. I don't understand why people will choose to believe this lie when they can see it right there in side-by-side comparisons. That there's zero consistency. This is a lie. They are caught red-handed. There's evidence, proof, video proof that they're lying. This technology is not difficult. People act like there's no way you can fake this stuff, and it's very simple. If you've ever watched a movie, even as far back as 2001: A Space Odyssey, that was a year before the moon landing happened, and they were floating around in space. Imagine what we can do now with the technology we have now. This is one of the first footages of a spacewalk where he comes out of the spaceship. Watch that head turn. Watch it turn and look at the camera as he waves. I'm going to show you again. He turns his head and waves. How can an astronaut turn his head? Does an astronaut's helmet turn? No, an astronaut's helmet does not turn. AI is scouring the internet and getting the best answer for your question. Does an astronaut's helmet turn? No. But we just saw it happen.
So this is where NASA trains astronauts before they can go to space. I'm here with Terry Dunn, you're the training operations manager. And Terry, we're in front of a spacesuit.
Right, this is the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU as we call it. And it's the spacesuit that astronauts wear for spacewalks, either the space shuttle back in those days or the space station now.
And so this has been used, this is the design that's been used for decades.
Right, it's essentially unchanged for the past 40 years.
He said it was used for spacewalks. He said it was unchanged for decades. Listen to what he says.
Design that's been used for decades.
Right, it's essentially unchanged for the past 40 years.
This right here, this astronaut spacesuit is the same model that has been used for decades. Nothing's changed. Listen.
And this is a very rigid suit. Like there's not a lot of mobility in here.
Right, the upper part, they call it the hard upper torso for a reason. It's really a hard shell, and despite the obvious comfort level of that, there's a reason for it. And you've got to have all these different things. The life support system, the controls for the suit, your tools, all have to be rigidly mounted. So you need that hard shell to be able to do that.
You need that hard shell, that rigidness at the top. Okay, we're getting a little bit closer, but here is the nail in the coffin.
And with the helmet on, the helmet doesn't turn when the astronaut's head turns.
That's right, your field of view is very limited.
The helmet doesn't turn when the astronaut's head turns.
That's right, your field of view is very limited. So is your situational awareness.
And so you can basically look almost all the way to your right and left, and then you need to be able to look down as well?
Correct. So if you need to see beyond those views, you're turning your whole torso like you're in traction.
You're turning your whole torso. He's saying the helmet doesn't move. And this is newer. This is like a newer model. He could have said, yeah, back in the day, we didn't have the technology to make your head move, but now we do. No, he's saying this model, the helmet doesn't move, and it's the same unchanged model that we've used for decades on spacewalks. We're building the whole evidence. The whole evidence is what we saw was footage of a spacewalk. We saw a helmet turn. It looked like claymation. The Earth that wasn't spinning 1,000 miles an hour. They're saying this is the unchanged astronaut suit and it doesn't turn. The helmet does not turn. You have to turn your whole body. Come on, are we going to lie to ourselves? Are we going to continue to believe this fairy tale just because, we think it's fun? Or we don't want to believe that we've been lied to? Why are we still believing this? So how much did the original moon buggy cost? I just think this is interesting. The original moon buggy, also known as the Lunar Roving Vehicle, had an initial contract cost of $19 million for that thing, but due to cost overruns, the final price reached $38 million. $38 million. You want to see what that looks like? That's $38 million, guys. That seriously looks like 2 lawn chairs on a door with wheels attached to it. How can that cost $38 million? $38 million, guys. And that was back in 1969. Come on, dude. 1969, $38 million for a doom buggy. And not even a really nice one. This is insane, guys. So the astronauts got back inside the moon lander, and they're going back home to Earth. Who is recording this? They left the cameraman. They left the cameraman on the moon just for this shot. And it's not like, okay, they left a camera, big deal, we left a camera. Cameras are very expensive. It had the footage in it. How do we even get this footage? How are they live streaming in 1969? Dude, I'm starting to dude, there's nothing about this that makes sense. How was astronauts live streaming in 1969 when every phone had a cord attached to the wall? There was nothing wireless. Oh my goodness, dude. How did anybody believe this? Look at this. The camera pans up. It's not just a camera left on a tripod. And like I was saying, the footage would have had the camera would have had the footage in it. Unless they're somehow live streaming, and I guess they did. I guess somehow they at least had the public fooled that you could live stream from the moon in 1969 with VHS camcorders. And they left someone on the moon to record the flight back home. Oh my goodness, guys. Oh, we're so gullible sometimes. I hope this was eye-opening for you guys. Like, if you were never a skeptic, if you never thought about this, maybe the wheels are turning. If you had heard about it but thought it was nonsense, of course we went to the moon. I pray that something shown here was like, maybe I need to look into this more. But I just thank you guys for being here. I love talking about these topics. The truth will set you free. That's what we're here for, the candid truth. We want to talk about the truth, and we want to get candid with it. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps get this video out into the algorithm so more people can see it. If you've never subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and hit that little subscribe button. Press the little bell icon so you won't miss another episode like this. And if you would like to donate to this ministry, we have ways of doing that through Cashapp, Venmo, Zelle. If you go to CandidTruthOrg, you can click the donate button and donate through PayPal. And it's because of you guys that we can even continue to do this ministry. And because of that, we'll see you next time. I love you guys. God bless.
Candid Truth.